We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
They could be anybody's. Nobody trusts anybody now. We're all very tired.
Put the bag down, Wendy.
Stop it!
Wendy, give me the bag.
Please! Billy!
Give me the bag.
Stop it!
Give me the bag.
Please!
Stop swinging the bag.
Please stop!
Give me the bag.
Billy!
Wendy!
Stop!
Give me the bag. Give me the bag.
God damn!
All right, episode number 2 of the M.V.M. Horror Podcast is coming at you guys. Of course, I am your co-host, Austin Shroyer, joined as always by my good friend, the one and only Miss Carly. So, yeah, how you doing?
I am doing swell. Yeah, how are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Yeah, it seems like we got some pretty good feedback on our last episode from, a couple different people leaving feedback in the group page and through, personal messages and stuff like that. So, yeah, huge thanks to everybody who downloaded, listened, and gave feedback. Yeah, so sounds like everybody really enjoyed it, which is always good to hear that we have definitely improved since our earlier days of when we were podcasting first off. So yeah. So yeah, what do you have to say?
I was just going to say I would agree. I am happy with the feedback we have received. It's nice to actually get feedback, because if you post something and then you just hear crickets kind of chirping, it's very disheartening. So thank you once again to everyone who's given feedback. And also, I mean, shout out to Jerry and the boys at Kill the Cast, because I just did an episode with them, and Jerry listened to our first episode and had some pretty nice things to say, and they kind of gave us shout outs on their episode as well. So yeah, overall I'm pretty happy with the fact that people liked how the first episode turned out, and I liked how the first episode went as well. I think we had a fun time, so I'm excited to put more content out there with you, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I did listen to that episode already, so yeah, definitely shout out to them. Well, I think I mentioned in our last episode that they also do something pretty similar to this on their podcast with they do Horror Coliseum. But as Jerry mentioned on the show, we just they break theirs down into like categories and stuff like that, and really dig deep into it. And we just kind of give our thoughts on the film. So I did kind of get the idea. Overall idea from this podcast from that, so yeah, I think it was
Thanks for letting us steal your idea, guys.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Well, I mean, if we really wanted to rip them off, we'd call it like Murder the Pod or something like that.
Yeah. Just complete ripoff. But I mean, to be fair, I mean a lot of shows have done similar stuff to this. I mean, like you got like 22 Shots, they do the remake versus originals, and other shows do stuff like that. So everyone kind of has focused on the idea once or twice, but our show's obviously gonna be primarily just that and not much of anything else. So it's, it's kind of our own little thing over here, I would say, at least.
Yeah, we definitely put our own little spin on it, and we'll continue to do so. So, yeah, if you enjoyed the first episode, definitely stick with us because I'm sure we'll be putting out some more good content and some fun shit to listen to. So, yeah, so have you done anything of note as of late?
As of late, I did see two movies recently, the two like most recent horror movies, I guess, to come out, and that was The Prodigy and Happy Death Day to You. And Prodigy, I thought was actually pretty creepy. I was kind of went into it not knowing much about it, and was pretty surprised. It had some really good creepy moments. So I enjoyed that experience. Happy Death Day to me, I kind of, to you, I shall say, I don't even, oh my god, that's like perfect for tonight. But anyway, yeah, that movie, I went into it thinking I was going to absolutely hate it because I hated the first one, but I do try to see pretty much every horror movie / thriller that comes out in theaters these days, so I did decide to go check it out last night, and it was surprisingly not as awful as I thought. I thought it had a pretty kind of messy story. They try to expand on the story and do something a little different, which I do give them credit for because I thought it was going to be the same exact movie over again based on the trailer, just maybe focused on a different character or something. But they kind of add to it, but I feel like at the same time they didn't really, it was just very messy and they didn't really know what they were doing and it got kind of convoluted. And then some of the choices in it were dumb, and also, it's not much of a horror. It's more of a comedy. It went all out and kind of focused on being a teen comedy with this one. I think it just kind of really took what it did in the first one and was like, hey, F it. Let's just make this as goofy as possible. But overall, it wasn't as cringy as the first one, and it did make me laugh. So it was just all right. But other than that, that's what I've pretty much done in recent time when it comes to horror-related things. Have you been watching anything or doing anything, Austin?
Yeah, I did watch my first 2019 horror film. Checked out The Escape Room, and I thought that was alright. It was actually pretty cool for about the first half of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ending was pretty trash, though, so,
I agree.
Yeah, it took the score down a little bit, but still a pretty decent watch, I felt. Had some cool stuff in it. Yeah, I actually, last night, I actually rewatched the original Happy Death Day, because figured we were talking about it. I'm starting to realize we talk about Happy Death Day a lot.
Way too much.
Of any movie, we talk about that movie, like, non-stop, it seems like, more than any other movie. Like, we need to find other topics.
Yeah, definitely. The other funny thing about that is I have, like, no desire to ever watch that movie again. So, I mean, you watched it, you just rewatched it, and to me, I just don't really want to ever pick that up or rewatch it. It was just way too cringeworthy for me. But, yeah, we should start probably, coming up with some new material here.
Yeah. But yeah, I actually enjoyed it probably a little bit more than I did when I watched it in theaters, honestly. Like, it actually does have some pretty suspenseful and creepy parts in it, especially in the first half. And I do like, kind of the journey the main character goes on. I think that's cool. And all the characters are pretty likable. Well, the main character is likable, but, they're all pretty fun. It's still have, quite a few problems with it, it's, I'm just not a big fan of the premise to begin with. That's why I'm just not excited at all to see the next movie, because it gets old after, like, halfway through the movie. I'm getting sick and tired of hearing the same lines over and over again, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like, yeah, but,
I will say this movie doesn't do that as much as the first one. It speeds through a lot of that for the most part. It is obviously the same idea of reliving, stuck in this time loop, but it's not her waking up and, well, it kind of is, but they don't it's not as down your throat as like her waking up and the Asian dude coming to the door every single scene. It's they try to kind of skip through it a little more in this film, but yeah, it was just all right.
Yeah, and I really don't find too many things like cringeworthy in that movie. I just don't find it very funny either. Like some of the jokes, like I just kind of like whatever. I did laugh at I think one of the jokes, and
That's kind of what I mean by if a joke just doesn't sit right with me, it comes off as very cringy, I guess. If it comes off very cheesy, I guess could be the other way of putting that. So that's kind of my problem with the first one, where the second one, the comedy was a little better, especially I think when you go into it knowing what you're getting yourself into, but just some of the choices that are made in this movie are so stupid and so preventable. Like I want to talk about it so much, but you just have to watch it to see what the heck I'm talking about.
yeah, I'll probably check it out, sooner rather than later. I'm probably not going to go see it in theaters, but
Yeah.
well, I definitely won't, because I like to be kind of picky about movies I see in theaters. Like, I like to see the ones I'm really interested in seeing, really. And there's a ton of movies this year I want to go see. So I mean, it's the new Pet Sematary comes out, and I'm sure A24 will be putting out something eventually, which I'll have to go see that. So,
I saw that awful trailer for Pet Sematary. They played it.
No, I didn't. So yeah, don't even go into detail. I haven't even
It
seen
was
it yet.
so.
I don't even know what happened.
Oh my god, it's so bad though. It's so like the first trailer they put out, I didn't think it was too bad. It didn't really give a lot away. It was just like, oh, this is Pet Sematary. But this one, I could see why people are so pissed off because it's your typical horror trailer where they give everything away, but it's the fact that it's something we already know that's it's a remake to a movie we already know about, so it's just extra annoying. So yeah, definitely avoid that.
Yeah, so I lucked out and didn't get it spoiled for me, so I'll probably be one of the only people that go into it that have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, you'll be
so,
like, wow.
Yeah, so, but yeah, that movie looks cool, and of course Us, and It Chapter 2, and all that, so, got some cool things coming out this year, so I like to save my money for that. I've also been, I ordered like a bunch of movies for Christmas, and I've been checking out a lot of those, because for Christmas, I like to like order a bunch of movies I haven't seen before, so it makes me like, excited to watch it. But just got around to checking, I think all but one of them out that I haven't seen. Some of them I had already seen before, but yeah, there's just picked up some like movies that are considered like classics, like Night of the Creeps. I can't remember. Oh, The Tenant and Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. So watched all three of those for the first time this past week. So yeah, enjoyed all of them. Really enjoyed Night of the Creeps. That's so much fun. Have you ever seen any of those?
No, actually, those are three that I also would like to see and just haven't, especially The Tenant, actually. That's one I've always been kind of curious about, but
Yeah.
I hear Night of the Creeps is a lot of fun, and I think JP loves that Tales from the Crypt film as well, so.
Yeah. I know a lot of people say that Demon Knight's like one of their favorite 90s films. I thought it was fun. I didn't think it was like anything great. I actually was I thought The Tenant was a really good film. It's just like really dialogue heavy, really slow moving.
I figured.
Yeah, I mean, like, I adore, like, Rosemary's Baby. It's, like, probably maybe near my top 50 all-time favorite horror films. But, yeah, I mean, it's definitely even slower than that. It's got some interesting things going on. There's some pretty creepy scenes, but I don't know. I was kind of disappointed, because I was expecting, like, some, like, masterpiece, because I know, heard Jeremy talk about it on 22 Shots and say it's like awesome, but yeah, it was good. I just didn't think it's anywhere near Rosemary's Baby, honestly.
Yeah, I like Rosemary's Baby a lot, but I've only seen it one time, and it's one of those films I feel like I only really need to watch one time because, for one thing, it's really long, and then another thing, it's like you just kind of take everything in that one time, and it's like, whoa, that's a great film. But yeah, I never watched it since. But I thought
Yeah.
I did watch the stupid miniseries, which is essentially comparable to like Psycho 98, where
Oh my
it's
god.
very, it's not necessarily shot by shot, but it's pretty much the same exact story, just kind of watered down. I don't know why. I have no idea why I picked that up. I just like ordered it one day for just blind buying stuff, and it was pretty stupid. But yeah, anyway, Rosemary's Baby, pretty much a masterpiece, and I do want to check out The Tenant eventually.
Yeah. Also, Propulsion's another movie by him. It's supposed to be really, really
Mm.
good. So have to. But yeah, it's a really well directed movie, of course. But yeah, for some reason, Rosemary's Baby is just one of those movies where I don't watch it a lot, but like I can rewatch it. Like
Mm.
it's not just like a one time watch for me. And I know it's like really like story driven and stuff like that, but I'm just really always interested in everything that's going on. I love how the story plays out. So
Yeah. Yeah, to me that one's actually almost in a way comparable to The Shining, where it's like a long movie and it kind of feels like it's a slow movie, but at the same time there's enough interesting stuff happening that you like the story's interesting enough to keep you into it throughout the entire thing.
yeah, so yeah, I guess without further ado, we will well, if you guys are in our Facebook page, which all of you listening should do, just look up the M.V.M. Horror Podcast on Facebook and join our page. You know what movies we're doing already, and we also did a little fan vote, which will reveal which movie won at the end of the episode. But yeah, as we stated in last episode, we are doing two 80s slashers. We really could have picked any one of them, but I just like it how both of our brain just kind of went for these kind of like standalone type slasher movies,
Hmm.
um, which is cool. But yeah, we decided to go with two movies from I believe the same year. I think they're both 81, because of
Yeah,
course they are.
that was gonna be my first comparison. Yeah, I was gonna say like, oh, these are both surprisingly from '81. Then I was like, wait a minute, so is every other,
slasher comes out from 81.
every single one.
It's unreal. I think I've heard before that. I don't know if this is true or not, but I'm pretty sure I heard before that in '81, a slasher movie came out in the theaters every single weekend, the entire year.
Yeah, I think like Moods has said that, and some other people have as well, and
Yeah.
that is just insane because that wouldn't even nowadays that just people would be like, what's this piece of trash? I mean,
Yeah.
maybe not necessarily. I mean, nowadays horror is more back on the come up, but the fact that it's the same type of movie over and over again is just crazy because you have so much variety nowadays.
Yeah. And yeah, people definitely got burnt out on slashers. From 81 to like 83. Then when Nightmare on Elm Street came out in 84, that's when people started getting interested in them again.
Hmm.
Because you got a supernatural element into it now to make things interesting. So, yeah. But anyways, we decided to go with two. I'd say probably two of the more popular ones from 81. Two of the more popular like standalone slasher films, I would say. And that, of course, is Happy Birthday to Me. I had to make sure I didn't say Happy Death Day, because God knows,
Happy Death
of
Day
course,
to you.
we've mentioned that too many fucking times on this podcast already. I know my brother's probably has a boner right now because of how much we've mentioned it, but
He's like, yes, guys, yes.
yes. But yeah, Happy Birthday to Me and The Prowler. Much more simple title to remember. So, yeah, as far as comparisons go, like we kind of briefly said in last episode, pretty much, a lot of 80s slashers can be like compared to each other. You can just compare the kills, what killers are better, the characters, the killer, stuff like that, the gore, the effects. You can basically compare pretty much all of them to each other. These two really don't have much in common based on like story. Like,
Mhm.
they don't have anything in common based on story and everything, but they come out the same year, of course, and they're both standalone slashers, and they both also are probably the two most well-known standalone slashers from the 80s that don't have remakes yet, I believe.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
I believe Happy Birthday. I know the Prowler doesn't. I believe Happy Birthday to Me doesn't.
Yeah, it does. It's called Happy Death Day to You.
Oh my god.
No, but no, it definitely does not. I think that's a memorable enough title, unless like there's some sort of slasher out there called just Happy Birthday, kind of like Silent Night, Deadly Night. There's just a
Yeah.
Silent Night, but I don't think there's any sort of remake of that one at all.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting, man, because like, I think like, it's kind of more obscure. Well, I guess The Burning doesn't have a remake either, which is again from '81.
Right.
Figure. But yeah, pretty much every other slasher you get. I mean, Prom Night has one, I believe. Valentine, of course. April Fool's Day. A lot of them got remakes, but yeah, these two haven't yet, and I would doubt they ever will at this point. I mean, the era of remakes is kind of over, unless it's like a Stephen King adaptation.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, like, if it's a popular movie, yeah, but if it's just a standalone random slasher, probably not.
Yeah, that was with the 2000, which we'll talk about the 2000s at the end of this episode a little bit. But, yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about Happy Birthday to Me first. Yeah, this was kind of a fresh watch for both of us. So I'm kind of glad you picked this one because I hadn't seen this in quite a while. I have it on this like Blu-ray double pack with the original When a Stranger Calls, and I try to stay as far away from that movie as possible. So I tend not to go towards this. Actually, this Blu-ray is put out by Mill Creek, and the Blu-ray transfer actually looks pretty damn good. Actually, I was really surprised.
Nice.
So I know they had like this VHS looking slipcover thing out now of just Happy Birthday to Me, like
Yeah.
Walmart and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyways, I hadn't seen this in years, and I did not remember a single thing about this one. I was kind of zoned out when I watched it the first time, and I know you said you hadn't watched this since you were a kid, I think.
Yeah, it was actually really weird rewatching this one because I still have the DVD that my mom bought me when I was a kid. That's the DVD that I have in my collection. And, well, first of all, it's kind of fun. I always see the cover for this movie is that, famous picture of the dude with the, like, shish kebab going into his mouth. But I actually have a DVD where it's a girl holding up a cake, and then behind her, it's, like, the lightning bolts and stuff. And so I always thought that was kind of cool because everyone has that other cover. But so yeah, I've had this DVD forever, and back when I was I have no idea what age I was, honestly, when I watched this. All my ages kind of run together in childhood, but probably like 8, 10, somewhere around that time period. My mom knew that I was kind of into these slasher movies for the most part, and that's kind of all she would really watch because she's very picky on horror movies. She got me into horror, but at the same time, she's very grossed out by a lot of stuff, and she also doesn't like anything that's upsetting, so it's very hard with her. But obviously, the 80s slashers, they're more cheesy than anything, so she was kind of showing me this type of stuff, just random slashers here and there, and this is one that she picked up. We both watched it together, and I remember we both just thought it was kind of, quote, stupid. So I was curious to rewatch it as an adult because I had never watched it again since because I remembered having that opinion of it. So it kind of just sat in my collection and thought this was a good opportunity to kind of dive back into it and see how I felt. And surprisingly, I remembered a lot of stuff from it, a lot of lines and just things going on. So I always think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I did remember the ending. Well, not quite. I'll get into that later, but I remember like what happens at the end when I was watching this. But I forgot some other stuff about it, which again I'll talk about later. But Yeah, I know this is, I've heard a few people say that, this is one of their all-time favorite slasher films. I know, when we put up that fan vote, Sam Edwards said this is one of his favorite slashers. I think Jason Lloyd said this is one of his favorite slashers as well, so, this one definitely has, is pretty well respected as it comes to, standalone 80s slashers, so, I did also, you have your people who really, really don't enjoy this one, because this one kind of is unlike, I think pretty much any other 80s slasher, and it's an hour and 50 minutes long, which is super long for a slasher, and unheard of for an 80s slasher to be that long, and, people just think it drags on too long and don't really enjoy it whatsoever. My overall thoughts on this film, I wouldn't necessarily say this is one of the greatest slashers ever made, but, I wouldn't say it's not a bad slasher by any stretch of the imagination, but, yeah, I think this is a pretty, decent, watch. I think that the movie is actually pretty well made for an 80s slasher. It looked shot pretty well. The acting is fine. It's 80s slasher. You get what you get from the movie. I mean, it's pretty much like any other 80s slasher. You got it's kind of like a whodunit slasher as opposed to the next movie we're talking about, which I guess the next one's kind of a whodunit slasher, but this one's, more of your traditional, like, who's the killer type deal. Yeah, I do think this one has some pretty good kills, and one kill that I'm starting to see a trend in a lot of movies that this kills, like, in a couple of slash movies, and it's starting to get on my nerves because of how stupid it is, but I'll talk about that when it comes up. Yeah, that's kind of the best thing I'd say about this film is the kills. And surprisingly, honestly, even for running an hour and 50 minutes long, it doesn't really drag that much for me, to be honest. Like, I'm not like super zoned out while I'm watching this film. So I will give it mad props for that. And yeah, I just think it's a pretty decent slasher. So yeah, what you think?
Yeah, my overall thoughts. When I looked at the back of the case, that's kind of the first thing I do is see how long a movie is, and I wanted to shoot myself. I was like, oh, great pick, Carly, like another long ass movie. And but I would totally agree. It does not feel that long. It feels very just fun 80s slasher. I would say it does try to have a little more story to it, and I saw someone, I forget if it was Sam or who it was, comment on our poll saying, "Oh, I like this one because it has Giallo inspiration."
Yeah,
and
Sam.
Before I even saw that comment, before that poll was up and everything, I had watched the movie already, and while I was watching it, I was like, "Holy crap, this movie is like an American Giallo in a way." It's got, you got black gloves and like it's whodunit. All slashers are kind of whodunit in a way, but this one's more so. It just feels more like that Giallo style whodunit type of film where it's more mystery than just straight up random, Jason Voorhees character killing everybody type of deal. So I thought that was actually kind of cool, but then at the same time, it's like I said, your typical 80s slasher where you have this group of characters, fun group of like teens, or I think they're actually college students in this movie, but and I actually really like the group of kids that you follow in this film. The main girl, I like her, and I like the dorky sort of weird dude who is kind of the what do you call it, the red herring or whatever kind of guy. I like him, and then the dude that's kind of flirting with her throughout the film. I actually like them. I think they're a good group of characters, and I find in a lot of standalone slashers that's kind of a hit or miss type of thing where the characters aren't always that likable or memorable, but in this one I found them to be pretty likable and memorable. I can kind of tell them apart. My biggest problem with this movie, I remember as a kid, was the reason I thought it was stupid was I didn't really like the sort of backstory and past of the main girl you're following. I just didn't really care for those scenes too much, and I kind of still feel the same way a little bit with watching it now, but when I was a kid, I remember there being so much more of that, and there really isn't that many flashbacks or anything as I remembered it being, so I didn't really have a huge issue with it. And also, finally, I would agree the kills are pretty good and pretty, for the most part, kind of unique in a way. I don't think it focuses overly too much on gore or effects, but as much as it's just you see a very brief moment where it's like bam and done. You don't really see any blood or aftermath too much, but I think the ideas behind each kill are pretty solid. So overall, I was pretty surprised by this rewatch. I'm glad I did pick this movie because I actually liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, so I guess I won't do the IMDb synopsis sucks on here, so I'll just kind of summarize my own. Yes, the plot of the movie is basically about this girl at a college academy. Basically, her friends just start going missing, and there's investigation going on to who may be doing it, and she's like kind of seeing this doctor about this trauma that she's been having. From events that happened a few years ago, and she's kind of living with her dad, who's kind of always seems to be never kind of he's like always away at work and stuff like that. So she's basically always by herself. Her mom, I think she died. I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically that. So, getting, like, I really, one of the things I really do like about this movie, I do think this movie has a really strong opening. I really love the opening, kill in this, movie, which that is kind of one of the scenes I remembered when I was watching it, remember happening, in, like, the parking lot and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just really well set up and everything. One thing that is kind of repeated that happens in this scene that's repeated throughout the rest of the movies, like every time like someone sees the killer right before they die, they're like, "Oh, it's you." Like,
oh my god, I was gonna bring that up too. I was like, am I watching Sleepaway Camp right now?
Yeah. Like it's just so silly. Like if I like run into you somewhere, I'm not gonna be like, "Hey, it's you."
Yeah, they're trying so hard to be like, oh shit, this is a character that we have been introduced to, or it's one of their friends, so that's going to be the killer. And then there's a later scene too where that involves the victim. He's just having a full blown conversation with the person, and you're not weirded out by the fact that the person's not replying to you at all or anything, and you're just kind of talking and answering your own questions. Because I would be kind of weirded out by that, but. Yeah, it's a very cheesy thing throughout movies that I've noticed as well.
Yeah, and it does that a lot. But yeah, the first kill is really well set up, and it basically just goes on from there. I do really I wouldn't say like none of these characters like stand out to me, honestly. Like I think all the like side characters really kind of blend in, honestly. Like, I don't remember really any of them besides the main character and the father. But I did like that scene where they're like driving over the drawbridge and shit like that, because yeah, it just seems like something from people around here would do.
It's ridiculous. Like my first complaint with the movie is just that scene. That dude drives over the bridge and destroys like the front end of his car.
Yeah, and he keeps
like,
driving.
He's like, oh, it's just a joke. That was great. I'm like, that's like hundreds of dollars of damage I think you just did there. What do you just do this every week?
Yeah. Oh, fucking well. I got got 10 other cars sitting at home. Oh well. Maybe his parents are rich. Maybe that's why he wasn't.
Well, to be fair, I think they were at like a rich kid
Yeah, they were.
school, so I guess whatever, passable. There you go.
Yeah, but yeah, this slasher is kind of, it's definitely different from the other slasher we'll be talking about. This is a more kind of story based. It does have like more of a story in it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, you know, for an 80s for a slasher in general, you know, it's kind of, you know, I don't really need to have like this really complex story in my slasher and stuff like that, like for it to be a good slasher. Like, it's weird with slashers because it's like you don't necessarily need to be like a good movie to be a good slasher necessarily. You know, you can be like like one of our favorite slashers, Madman, is we have both discussed as a pretty bad movie, but it does everything a slasher should do, really. It has great kills and cool killer, good characters. So anyways, you get where I'm going. So
Yeah, I feel, yeah, definitely. But for me, it's nice if a slasher every once in a while tries to have a little more story because if I go through a phase where I'm watching maybe new slashers that I haven't seen before, it gets a little bit old just seeing the same old stuff, especially if they're not that quality of a film. But yeah, it just kind of depends. I do appreciate this film for trying a little harder and trying to make a sort of whodunit type of theme and putting a little bit of backstory, even though I don't necessarily love the backstory. And the ending I completely forgot about. Like, I remembered the ending technically, but I didn't remember the big sort of reveal that you get there, and I thought that was extremely just convoluted and weird.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's like probably one of my biggest problems with the film.
yeah, I really like when, you know, slashers have, you know, stories and stuff too. What I was kind of getting at is like I don't necessarily like the story in this movie that much.
I feel.
Yeah, you know, it just seems like it's really rushed, even though the movie's like an hour and 50 minutes. Like, it seems like all the ideas and and stuff is like rushed. Like we don't hear anything about a birthday till like 3/4 of the movie, 3/4 through the way of the movie. I feel like it's like, oh, by the way, your birthday's coming up, and it's like, oh wow, I forgot. This is called Happy Birthday to Me. It's just really weird, and it's just kind of weird about like how they do kind of the way they chose to do this, you know, whodunit type thing, because it points, you know, well, all of our reviews are kind of spoiler, so it points to the main character basically the entire movie, you know. It doesn't even try to hide it being her, which it doesn't end up being, but anyways, it points to her. Yeah, it points to her. It points to it being her the entire time. So there's really no mystery involved in it, and it's just a kind of an odd choice because I feel like it would have been more. The reveal would have been more effective if we actually didn't know who it was, and I actually would have liked it much better if it actually was her, and you know, it was done better to where it didn't point at her the entire film, and you know, we get kind of what we get at the ending, but with it actually being her the entire time. I thought, I like, honestly, like, that's, like, how I remembered the ending. That's what I thought happened. Like, I remember from the ending. And then once, like, the twist comes, I'm just like, oh, God, like, that kind of sucks, honestly. Like, I remember this ending being, like that being the part that stood out to me. Like, when people would ask me about this movie, I was like, yeah, it has a really cool ending. And I'm just like, no, it doesn't. Like, it doesn't at all. Like, I hate that reveal.
You know,
at the end.
Yeah, and this ending, it's like that reveal also this is kind of why I don't like Giallo films as well. The ending, you get that reveal, and I was kind of like, who's that?
Yeah, that's what I was too.
Like, it wasn't some like, oh wow, it was them the whole time. It was like, I don't remember who this character is. I feel like an idiot right now, but she looks like any other human looks, but then I don't know. I was just I don't like it, and I was the same way. I remembered the ending and thinking, oh, this is actually a kind of a cool ending. But then I remembered it the same way you did, where it turned out to be her the whole time, and then I see that, and I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, and it's just like, again, like 3/4 of the way through the movie, like it starts introducing stuff about like, her repressing these memories about this accident that happened and about her mom and stuff like that, and like it's not even brought up until like 3/4 of the way through the movie. I'm just like, it's just really weird to like introduce all this stuff like towards the end of the movie, and it just feels like for the rest, for like most of the movie, like the story really doesn't go anywhere. It's just kind of people go missing. She's kind of, has this trauma, and it's, we see her, we actually see what looks to be her doing the killings and stuff like that. So it's just really weird how they do it, and I didn't really care for it all that much.
Hmm. Yeah, it's understandable. Like I said, that's kind of the same way I felt about it the first time I watched it. Second time around watching this, I don't mind it as much. I really just don't like how it ended, and I would agree. I mean, I feel like they kind of try to hint that this girl might have had some problems at the beginning, like when they first go over the bridge and then she runs to her mom's grave and all that. But at the same time, it seems like till, maybe it's exaggerated, but it feels like it's not until halfway through the movie where you get a flashback scene. And also at the beginning of the movie, the girl just seems totally normal. So it is a very weird sort of build up, I guess you can say. But I don't know. I was just kind of surprised. I did enjoy the movie a lot more than I expected to, I guess. But I felt like the story was messy, and the way the killer's kind of pulling the stuff off and confusing our main girl, I thought was really ridiculous too.
Yeah. That's really my only like main complaint, is how messy the story is. Because honestly, like I said, like what really saves this movie is the kills.
Mm-hmm.
Like we mentioned, the first kill is really well set up and everything. There's a kill with like someone getting like thrown into like a dirt bike and getting his face ripped off by a tire. Totally impractical, wouldn't quite happen like that, but it's cool to see anyways.
Yeah.
And and of course the famous shish kebab kill, which I don't know why it's like, is that like
It's like the worst kill in the.
Yeah, it's one of the worst kills in the movie, but yeah, I actually have the same cover as you do on my Blu-ray, so.
Oh really?
Yeah, I do think that's cool, but
Yeah.
yeah, the one kill that like I was just like, I scratch my head all the time, is the dude lifting weights, which is kind of what you were pointing at, like him having an entire conversation with her basically, and be like, oh, it's you, whatever, blah blah blah, and her not even responding. But it's not really about that. Like I swear I've seen this like exact thing where like how the kill happens, where he's like benching and he like has the weight up, and like they take it away and they just hold the weight there and they act like they're completely helpless and they can't do anything. You can just drop the weight down your chest and just shift your weight over the side and push the weight off of you. You don't have to sit there and hold the weight there. And it especially makes it funnier in this instance because I believe I actually like, because I used to like work out and stuff like that, and I played sports, so like I guess I just automatically look for this, pay attention to this kind of stuff. But I pay attention to how much weight was on there, and he was only benching 215. Now, I probably only benched about 220, I think was the max I only ever benched, because I stopped working out after a while, so I never really, got beyond that point. But 215 isn't a whole lot of weight now. I mean, like, you can just literally just drop it down to your chest, just roll the weight off to the side and push it off. I mean, if someone's going to kill you, you don't have to just sit there like an idiot. And I swear I've seen that in like a couple other slashes where they do it the exact same way. I'm just like, wow, why? What are they doing?
It's like, oh, I have to die. That's it. Yeah, obviously I have never worked out a day in my life, so I can't really relate to any of that. But I mean, this guy did look pretty muscular and strong, like he should know what he's doing. But there was definitely multiple ways he could have probably got out of that instead of just dropping it right on his neck or whatever he dropped it.
Yeah,
but
she drops a weight on his balls, and then the weight drops.
Oh, okay, yeah,
impales him basically.
Yeah.
Which again is very impractical, but again, it doesn't really matter. It's just, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
But
I give him credit for trying to make a unique type of death scene, I guess, but it's just not realistic. But then again, slashers aren't realistic.
No. But yeah, and I think this one doesn't have too high of a body count, I don't think. Maybe like 4 or 5, maybe?
It is 6 deaths. I think
Six.
I think it says it like on every single summary, and that's the only reason I know that off by heart. It's like 6 people were murdered, and they're trying to figure out who did it.
Yeah. So I do know there's a scene like towards the end with like the doctor who doesn't even end up dying, but we see him get hit over the head with this fire poker, I think it is, and blood just splatter everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is again just super impractical, but again, it's fun. But yeah, I guess we can like get towards the ending, like talk about the ending. Now I think we've covered basically all the basis of it, like how the twists, like this chick is like has been disguising herself as our main character the entire time and framing her, and yeah, the only thing I remembered from the ending was her coming up with the birthday cake and singing happy birthday. I remember it being like really creepy.
Yeah.
And like having all her dead friends sitting around the table. Like that would be such a cool ending if that's how the way they did it, but they do some like double twist, and yeah, I don't really like it.
Yeah, I agree. I remember her singing specifically "Happy Birthday to Me" because I remember thinking, oh, it's the title of the movie in the movie, and I remember liking that, but that whole twist I just completely forgot about. And when it happens, I'm just like, what the heck is good? Like, she had a twin sister this whole time. What's going on? And then you see the thing with the mask, which is just bizarre. I mean, okay, like your dorky friend, it shows that he's really, really good at making exact replicas of people's faces at the beginning, but I don't think you're gonna have a mask that makes you look exactly like another human.
Yeah.
I just don't think it works that way quite. Maybe if you're a really good special effects guy, but this is just some random dude. But yeah, it just doesn't really work for me.
Yeah, I just think it's lame because they ruined a good ending with a lame twist, and it's like,
And then
really
yeah.
disappointing.
And the twist doesn't really go anywhere.
No, it goes nowhere.
It's the very ending of the movie. You find out what happened, and then like something else happens, and then it just ends. It's like, okay, she explains this whole backstory that doesn't really matter, and then, bam.
She ends up killing the killer anyways.
Yeah.
And then the doctor comes back down, and it's like, what the hell have you done? And the
So
movie just ends. It's like, oh wow, so we're basically at the same place we would be as if she was the killer all along anyway, so why the hell did we have to have this twist in there? It's just put in there. I think it's just trying to do too much, honestly. Like, I think they were, I'm all for a good story, absolutely. I mean, if you're gonna have a story, though, just do it well. Like, it just seemed like they just tried to do too much, and it just didn't work out, I don't think, but, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I just like the idea of her having all her friends dead there, and then her dad seeing that and being so disturbed that his daughter was just messed up the whole time. Like, I thought that was a cool idea. Like, yeah, they try to make it they try to make it upsetting that the dad died thinking that, but I mean, I don't know. It's convoluted. It's stupid. It happens way too quick. That's the biggest problem. It's like within the last 2 minutes of the film.
Yeah, I would just rather it not happen at all. Just have her be the killer. Don't make it a whodunit slasher. Don't, point to really anybody being the killer. Reveal it to be her the entire time and have that scene at the end would have been fantastic. With, her having all her dead friends around the table and stuff like that, and her dad there. Would have been awesome, but he didn't do it like that. So, yeah, you have anything else to add before we move on to the next film?
I think I am all good.
Alright, so moving on to a much simpler movie with really hardly any story at all. And that, of course, is again from 1981, and that is The Prowler. Now, this film I am much more familiar with. When I was first, checking out, all, the hidden gem, 80 slashers, I remember there was, a summer where, me and my brother watched nothing but, 80 slashers, new, slashers, The Burning, and, April Fool's Day, movies like that. And, this is one that I checked out right around that time, and honestly, this is just always one that just stood out to me. I've always been, such a big fan of this film. It's really, really simplistic. It has basically the same exact story as another slasher that came out in the same year. The effects are done by Tom Savini, and he definitely does not disappoint in this film. And I don't know, this one just always stood out to me. Out of all of them, this was always one of the standout ones to me, even when I first watched it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this was a first-time watch, so it's not one that I saw early on or anything like that, and obviously not until just a few days ago I watched it. It's one I always kind of heard about, one that was always put highly up there as a standalone next to, The Burning and Happy Birthday to Me, and just all those standalone slashers, and it was one I always was curious about but kind of passed up, and I think kind of the title didn't really appeal to me, and just the look of the killer, which when you watch the movie, I think the killer's a lot creepier looking, but just when I would see the cover of the film, it just never really appealed to me with the, all these other movies have these more interesting titles, and this one's just some dude prowling around, The Prowler. It's very to the point, so I just always kind of passed it up, and I was kind of glad that we picked this one as well, where you kind of suggested this one, because it definitely deserved to finally get a first-time watch for me, and I will just say that I did not love it as much as I thought I would based on everyone's talk of it. Everyone kind of really hypes this one up a lot like they would any other one, and I just didn't really see it. Maybe it's because it was a first-time watch and I didn't watch it multiple times beforehand, so I didn't really grow up with it, but to me it felt like just your typical slasher film and nothing really special. It does have really good effects if you're comparing it to, Happy Birthday. Its effects are much better. Obviously, Tom Savini effects going on there. They're very gory and bloody, and that's probably one of my favorite things about the movie. But other than that, it just didn't really feel all that special to me. So
I'll have to tell you a story after the episode's done about the Prowler.
All right.
Anyways, so the story in this movie is, like I said, pretty simple. We have this, the opening scene is takes place in 1945. It's at this graduation dance at this small town, and basically this dude gets back from the war, and kills these kills these people. So the town shuts down the graduation dance. They don't have it until, I think, 35 years later, something like that. And, yeah, it is basically about them, setting up for the dance, and then more people will start getting killed off, and this time around as well. So, yeah, it's basically the plot of My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah, that's what I was picturing.
The whole Valentine dance thing and everything. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all the story we got going into it. And this one is more of your traditional kind of slasher, with just, as opposed to Happy Birthday to Me being like this kind of whodunit thing where the killer's off screen all the time. We know what the killer looks like in this one, which I gotta say, that's always one of the things that stood out to me, was the look of the killer. He just looks really, really fucking cool with his like army helmet on and stuff like that, and whatever kind of slimy, fucking wet suit that he has on. I don't know why it's always so slimy and shit like that. I don't know what he's doing.
I don't want to know.
Yeah, I don't think we do. But yeah, it's just always one that stood out to me. And that's one of the things I really like in like my slasher films, is things that like really stand out to me. I just don't want some Joe Schmo going around with a fucking knife, some regular looking dude, like in
Final Exam.
I was about to say that. Just doing like these kind of bland kills, and that stuff's never gonna really stand out to me. Like, I love slashers with like really cool, unique looking killers, with really cool, unique kills, or like with them like using like some like really cool weapon, like Slumber Party Massacre, like, and they use like the drill and stuff like that. Like, I think that's really something that's gonna set it apart from other slashers. That's gonna make it stand on its own. So that's one thing I look for in slashers, and this one really does check the box for everything, really, in that regards. I'd say the best thing that the thing that gets mentioned the most in this film is the kills. In fact, one of the kills in this film, in the second half of the film, gets brought up on pretty much when anybody talks about like their favorite kills in slasher history. This kill like almost always gets brought up, which we'll get into later. But yeah, I mean, I just really, really love the effects in this film, and like I'm not really much of a gore person per se. Like, I don't get like excited when the movie's like super gory and stuff like that. Like, if there's no gore, if there's gore, it doesn't really matter to me. I do, however, like if it's like, I do really appreciate when it's like really, really effective. And this movie definitely is. The kill, I think this is the first teenager to get killed off. The one like up in the room, who gets like the knife through the head, and like you see his eyeballs get in the back of his head. Like, seriously, like, I've watched this movie probably about a half a dozen times, and I like always want to look away at that part. Like, it seriously just makes me like sick, like, looking at it. Like, he's yanking up on his head, making his eyes get in the back of his head. It's so grotesque looking, and it's not like a super overly like gory movie. It's just that the effects just look so gruesome, and that's another thing that just stands out about it to me.
Yeah, I think that scene's really creepy too, just seeing eyes roll back in the head and just seeing nothing but white. Like, that really kind of creeps me out. Yeah, like I said, the kills are solid in this film. I mean, I think they're all not as over the top with gore as some other movies maybe, but they really get the job done when it comes to just being extremely bloody and kind of just making you cringe a little bit and want to look away because you think like, that looks pretty freaking painful. The shower kill was actually probably my favorite. I just think that would suck. Just getting, pitchfork to the stomach, and then it's just so bloody, and then seeing blood mix in with water, I think that's just a cool look because it makes things just look 10 times more bloody. But so yeah, that's probably my favorite part about the movie. I think my biggest issue really is just I don't really care about any of these characters. They're not memorable to me. Like how I said with Happy Birthday to Me, I really liked the characters in that one. I thought I just felt like they had more different kind of personalities, I guess, to bring to the table, where in this movie they're very just basic in a way, and honestly, I don't remember like anyone's name in this movie or anything like that to really talk about. And yeah, this movie and Happy Birthday to Me are very interesting because they came out the same year, obviously, but they are as far apart as you can get when it comes to the slasher genre. So kind of interesting to compare them. This one feels very much like My Bloody Valentine, or I even kind of told you it reminds me a lot of Friday the 13th, especially Friday the 13th Part 2, which came out the same year as well, I believe, but they feel very similar, and this one is very much just by the numbers, and feels like all the other ones that were coming out at the time, where Happy Birthday to Me kind of tries to do its own little thing in a way. So that's kind of why, though it hurts this movie a little bit for me, is because, like I said, it doesn't stand out or feel overly special, besides the kills being more top-notch than kills you see in other movies, such as like the first Friday the 13th, where it's just like a flashing light and you don't actually see what happens. So yeah, that's just kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I would say that this movie doesn't really try anything different. Like I said, it is pretty much the same story as My Bloody Valentine's, basic story with basic characters. I mean, there's nothing to any of these characters. I mean, they're all fun characters, but they're not memorable whatsoever. It doesn't really bother me all that much. I honestly don't feel like, unless it's like one of my like really all-time favorite slashers, like Sleepaway Camp and some of the Friday 13th movies like that have like really memorable characters. Like in most of these movies, like I don't feel like they have super memorable characters, so they just kind of all blend together for me. But I guess like the thing that makes it stand out for me like big time is just the execution. Like I think this movie has really good atmosphere. I really like the music in this film. I love the first chase scene we get. Our main character is kind of like walking down the stairs and sees his shadow coming down the steps, and then you see him at the top of the steps, and they have this kind of little chase scene at the bottom, which is like something you get more in like a 90s slasher, kind of like those kind of types of chase scenes like towards the beginning of the movie. Like usually like in a 80s slasher, it only happens like towards the end with the final girl. And yeah, I just thought that was really cool to have in there. Yeah, I mean it's like the only two characters that really focused on at all in this entire movie are kind of like the deputy, whatever, the cop, and the main character, who are kind of like investigating themselves. Like she's kind of going along and trying to figure out what the hell's going on and stuff like that. Which is probably my only negative with this movie, is there's a lot of investigating going on, and I kind of get tired of it after a while.
Yeah.
Like they're just like, oh, let's go to this house, let's go to this cemetery, let's go back to this house. I'm like, okay, can we just not have all this in there?
Yeah, to kind of add to that, like while I was watching this movie, I think I got a phone call or something, so I had to turn it off for a little bit and then go back to it. And I was watching it actually on Shudder, so it's kind of a pain because you can't just rewind on my TV once I close the app on my phone. I got to go back to the app, put it back on my TV, and then try to figure out where I was on the app. So I'm like trying to fast forward back to where I was, and I was like, okay, I think this is it. Then I was like, wait, no, I already saw the investigation part. And then I'm like, this is it. And then I'm like, wait, I think I saw this part as well. Like all the parts I was getting mixed up on where I was in the film. So that's kind of I would agree. There's just a little too much of the same stuff going on for a little while there.
Yeah, the only one I like where they're investigating, I think it's the first time they do it when they after that chase scene, they investigate like the house and stuff a little bit. So it's like kind of like, oh, is he was just in there, he could still be there. So it kind of makes it a little creepy watching that part. But yeah, towards the end of the movie, like they do like go to the cemetery to investigate, they go to the sheriff's place to investigate. They're just all over the place investigating. But I will say I do think the first half of this movie is better than the second half.
Yeah.
But will say this also: there is a kill in the second half of the movie, like I said, that is seen by a lot of people as one of the best kills ever, and probably by me too. Probably my favorite kill in the movie. The kill scene in the pool when she just gets like boot in the face, and then blood just starts going everywhere, and she gets her throat slit in the pool. Just really, really well set up, and yeah, the gore just looks just really gruesome as it does in the rest of the movie. But
yeah, this movie really, with the gore, does a good job of like doing it really slow, like just a very slow slicing into the neck, and it just very much focuses on the gore for a long period of time, and I think that's very effective because that's kind of what makes you sort of cringe and want to look away from the TV because it goes on for so long. So yeah, that's definitely a very memorable kill there.
Yeah, I think when Exploding Heads did their favorite kills from slasher history, I'm pretty sure this one made, I think, at least 2 or maybe all of their lists. So it's pretty highly regarded. But yeah, then pretty much on from there. I was kind of like wondering this time around, like, it's kind of weird how the way they talk. They're like, there's a prowler outside. Like when they're in there, like who the hell uses that term as like a prowler? And like everybody's saying, like I almost like when I was watching it this time, I was like I almost wonder if like this movie had a different title and they changed it to the Prowler just because of that. And sure enough, the original title was named Rosemary's Killer. So.
But yeah, actually, that's the other funny thing. I'm watching this on Shudder, and the only way to watch it is with that Joe Bob commentary, and I kind of wasn't paying attention to that too much because I was kind of just trying to, I just wanted to get the movie watched, but I would take a break whenever he would talk a little bit, and he actually mentioned that. He was like, now the original title was, what is it, Rosemary's Killer, and he was like, and, they thought that was a stupid title or something. He says something like, but, I mean, this title's is just as stupid, so, and I'm, watching the movie, I'm like, oh, they did it, they said the name in the movie. I was like, yay, but yeah, no, I don't think I've ever used the term Prowler except for when referring to the film The Prowler, so.
Yeah, I'd skip the Joe Bob parts, fuck Joe Bob. Anyways.
You're the biggest, hater.
It's because he's lame. Who the fuck dresses up as a cowboy and goes on and talks about horror films? Dresses like a fucking vampire or a zombie or something. Makes sense.
I mean, I don't know. That's kind of it. He's trying to be like all of us losers who just sit at home.
I'm not a cowboy. I know that for damn sure.
Alright, I'm just talking about, people who live around here. I could see them getting drunk and just sitting with a cowboy hat in their living rooms, but
yeah,
I don't know. Whatever. But yeah, the Prowler.
About the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much the dance everybody gets locked in the dance. So they're not allowed to go out, and then they kind of do this investigating and stuff like that, and while they're investigating, they put it together that this is probably the same person who did the murders all those years ago, which is not too hard to find out. It's not too hard to realize that. I mean, we know that. They probably wouldn't have known that, because we know that, it only makes sense, but, they kind of figure that out, and then they, go back to the sheriff's place, and then we kind of have our final fight there. which it's a pretty cool ending. You know, it's not the best like final fight, I don't think, but it's pretty cool. I like the reveal's pretty cool. Yeah, it's better than our previous film at least. At least it wasn't like someone at least didn't point to something and then have like a double twist that didn't make any sense. So
yeah, once again, it's not convoluted. It's just very paint by number type of thing. But yeah, I felt the final chase was, it kind of just feels, I don't want to say abrupt. I guess it goes on for a little bit, but it's not overly climatic, however you say that.
It's not as good as the first chase scene that happens in the house that they're in for the dudes and stuff. So it's pretty cool though. And then it gets revealed to be the sheriff. I think did I say it already? It's revealed to be the sheriff.
I don't think you did.
Yeah, well it is.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. So. And but I really, really love the very ending of it with when she finds the bodies in the shower.
Yeah, that was so creepy.
One of them grab her.
Yeah, I was like, holy crap, I wasn't expecting that. That was like spooky type of stuff in my slasher.
Yeah, and then it goes this really peaceful music afterwards. It's like, oh.
It's like the end. Never mind. All the spooks
nice.
are over.
It's nice. But so do you have anything else to add for this movie?
Not really, honestly. I mean, there's not much to say about this one. I mean, it's very, very different from the first one we talked about, so, I mean, that's cool. I think the kills, if you're comparing both movies, I think they both have good kills, but the difference being that this one just amps it up on the gore, where the other one's kind of the typical cutaway type of kills, which that's another big comparison with slashers around that time. You either had full-on gore or you had where you saw nothing, and that's kind of the big differences you get with these two movies, I think. So, but overall, I do feel like this one could grow on me. I could definitely see myself picking this one up and watching it a few more times, but on first watch, I just thought it was okay. I thought it was definitely an above average horror movie, slasher movie for the time compared to some other more low budget ones or other standalone ones, but it just wasn't definitely not my favorite as of now. But like I said, it's one that I feel like I could afford to watch a few more times.
Yeah, I do have the Blue Underground DVD of this that has gotten some good use out of the day. I remember I actually lucked out with a lot of these Blue Undergrounds because they're the DVDs are $10-15 now on some of these, and I got them when they're $3 plus shipping. So I was like, hey. But, alright, so I guess we is ready to rate these movies. So you go ahead and go first on these.
I'm gonna rate both of them?
Yeah.
Alright. Okay, so for Happy Birthday to Me, I mean, that one took me by surprise. It was a lot better than I remembered. However, I felt that the story got a little convoluted, a little sloppy, and the ending was a bit of a letdown for me, but overall, I thought it was a fun film. I felt it didn't drag on, as some people say. I thought it had the same fun 80s killer type of vibe that other ones have. So for that one, though, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Now, for the Prowler, this one was just felt very much like everything I've seen before, so it was hard for me to really enjoy the story too much. I didn't like the characters, like I said, as much. I didn't think they were very memorable or anything of that matter, but the gore, the kills were really good. I thought the look of the killer was pretty scary. It had some decent chase scenes, and like I said, there's actually a scene that's pretty creepy at the end. So for this movie, mainly for the gore effects and it just being a little more above average than other movies I've seen at the time. I gave this one a 7 out of 10.
That's actually higher than I expect you to be on it. So
I know, I was wrestling between like the 6.5, 7 range, but I thought, you know what, it's actually it's better than what I kind of see it as. Like I said, I want to rewatch it a few more times.
all right, so with Happy Birthday to Me, I'm right. Well, I guess I'm a little bit lower than you are, I guess. Right around the same area though. I gave it a 6.75 out of 10. Really decent watch. I could definitely, wouldn't want I'd be, rewatch a whole lot. But, definitely some good kills in there. Has some good stuff going for it. Just a really messy story. And actually pretty, uses its time pretty wisely for its runtime. So, definitely easily rewatch that one in the future. And for the Prowler, now it may not seem like I blew this movie too much while I was talking about it, but this is probably in contention for probably my second favorite standalone slasher from the 80s. That is, if you count Maniac as a slasher, which I do. So I guess this would be probably my second, maybe third favorite standalone 80s slasher. I've always just absolutely loved this film. I just think it's creepy, got great kills, great gore, really good atmosphere, really good chase scenes. Just checks most of the marks for me. I actually have this one rated as a 9, but I'm gonna go to the 8.75 on it. So,
Dang.
So yeah, I do think of this movie pretty highly. I think I like this movie more than a lot of people do, I'd say, but it's just always been one of my favorites. So, what the fuck did we rate? I should have been paying attention to the ratings.
I had my calculator pulled up, and I know I already forget though what it was, but the Happy Birthday to Me comes in at around 14.5-ish points for both of us, and then the Prowler came in at like 15.75 points. So looks like the Prowler takes this one.
All right, so
woo!
Man, you actually came up clutch there. Good job.
I guess so. Yeah.
Even though you hate that word, but for some reason.
I do.
Because I use it. Because everything I do has to be an issue.
Yep, it does. Not gonna argue there.
Yeah, so you guys can see what's going on here. I'm so unfairly treated.
Yeah, I'm the downfall to every show I'm
on. But yeah, anyways, the Prowler is going to take the win here, which I guess in our fan vote that we put up in our Facebook group page, the Prowler also took the win pretty easily, I think. I think out of like the 15 people that voted, I think the fuck! I went so long! I went so long!
I know, all two of us did.
Me, you, and the rest of us.
Yeah, all our friends.
Yeah. Man. Maybe I'll just edit that out.
Yeah.
Happy Birthday to Me only got like 3 votes. I think the Prowler got like 12 or 11 or whatever, how many the rest. So, we are in the popular opinion with this vote, I guess. So
yeah.
So make sure you guys join that group page so y'all can get involved.
Who are you, Joe Bob?
I'm editing that out.
Cricket chirp sound effect.
Yeah, I ain't got time for that.
All right, whatever. Go on.
Anyways, so you guys can get involved on, voicing your opinions on this. So, but anyways, thank y'all for listening. Leave your opinions. What's your favorite movie out of these two? And I guess we will catch you guys in our next episode. Peace.
Peace.